They were victims first, broken by abuse, betrayal, and unimaginable pain. But somewhere along the way, their survival instincts twisted into something darker, something lethal. This is Victims to Killers, the anatomy of a breaking point. And trust me, you'll never see good versus evil the same way again. Before we begin, let's get one thing straight. This isn't about excuses, it's about why. Why do some victims of horrific trauma rebuild their lives while others pick up a weapon? To answer that, we're analyzing 4 cases that shocked the world. Cases where victimhood and violence became 2 sides of the same bloodstained coin. Strap in. November 2nd, 2016. Sherri Papini, a 34-year-old California mother, vanishes during a jog. 22 days later, she's found on a roadside at 4 a.m., branded, emaciated, her hair chopped off. She claims 2 Hispanic women held her at gunpoint, chained her, and starved her. The nation weeps until March 2022 when the FBI drops a bombshell. Sherri faked it all. But here's what most miss. Papini wasn't just lying, she was reenacting a trauma she'd already survived. At 16, Sherri was in a car crash that killed her best friend. Her family belonged to the Bethel Church cult, where members believed suffering brought them closer to God. Psychologist Dr. Eleanor Rushing explains, Sherri learned early that pain equals attention, and attention equals love. When her marriage grew cold, she didn't seek therapy. She recreated the crisis that once made her feel worthy. Papini's hoax wasn't random. She chose Thanksgiving week for maximum sympathy. She even used a burner phone to text her husband. I'm alive, but they're trying to kill me. But the branding? That was her masterstroke, a literal scar to prove her victimhood. Yet, in 2023, at her sentencing, the judge noted, You didn't just lie, you eroded trust in real victims. Papini got 18 months in prison, but here's the kicker. Even her confession was a lie. She still claims part of the kidnapping were real. A victim of her own delusions or a predator in survivor's clothing. The jury is still out. Let's rewind to 1993. Karla Homolka, the pretty petite wet assistant from St. Catharines, Ontario, cuts a plea deal. She admits to helping her husband, Paul Bernardo, rape and murder 3 girls, including her 15-year-old sister, Tammy. In exchange, just 12 years in prison. The public riots. How could this battered wife get off so easy? But leaked videotapes later revealed the unvarnished truth. Karla wasn't just compliant, she was enthusiastic. She stole halothane, an animal anesthetic, from her clinic to drug Tammy on Christmas Eve 1990. As her sister lay unconscious, Karla had a cloth over her face while Bernardo raped her. Tammy vomited and suffocated, and Karla's response? She told the police, I didn't think he'd do it to my sister. Forensic psychiatrist Dr. John Bradford testified that Karla suffered from dependent personality disorder, a pathological need to please. Her parents, strict and emotionally distant, raised her to value obedience over empathy. Bernardo, a diagnosed psychopath, became her god. But here's the chilling twist. After her release in 2005, Homolka remarried, had 3 kids, and even volunteered at a school. To this day, she claims she is a changed woman, but as one victim's mother spat, monsters don't change. They just find new prey. Aileen Wuornos didn't just kill 7 men between 1989 and 1990s. She turned their cars into crime scenes and their corpses into statements. But to understand her rage, you have to go back to Troy, Michigan, 1956. Aileen's mother abandoned her. Her grandfather, a violent alcoholic, molested her. And by 11, she was trading sex for cigarettes. At 13, pregnant by a family friend. By 15, homeless in Florida, hitchhiking to survive. In her final interview, Wuornos sneered, "Those men deserved it. They wanted to rape me." But forensic evidence tell a murkier tale. Only one victim, Richard Mallory, had a violent past. The rest, a trucker, a rodeo worker, a missionary, all shot execution style. Dr. Elizabeth Usher, who studied Wuornos' brain scans, notes her frontal lobe, the area controlling impulse, was severely damaged. Combine that with a lifetime of betrayal, and you get a woman who saw every man as a threat waiting to happen. In 2002, Florida executed Wuornos by lethal injection. Her last words? "I'll be back," like Jurassic Park. A joke? A threat? Or the final cry of a woman who never knew peace? Gypsy Rose Blanchard's childhood was a lie. For 23 years, her mother Dee Dee told the world Gypsy had leukemia, muscular dystrophy, and the mind of a 7-year-old. Neighbors in Springfield, Missouri donated thousands. Charities sent Make-A-Wish trips. Even doctors were fooled. Why? Because Dee Dee had Munchausen by proxy, a disorder where caregivers invent illnesses for sympathy. But Gypsy wasn't sick. Dee Dee shaved her head, forced her into a wheelchair, and drugged her with unneeded medication. Then, in 2015, Gypsy did the unthinkable. She met Nicholas Gojan online, handed him a knife, and watched him stab Dee Dee 17 times. At trial, Gypsy's lawyer argued, this wasn't a murder, it was a rebirth. Gypsy got 10 years. Dee Dee's autopsy revealed the ultimate betrayal. Gypsy's medical records were forged. No cancer, no seizures. Just a healthy girl trapped in a gaslit hell. After her 2023 parole, Gypsy told People magazine, "I regret the murder, but not her death." Today, she's a TikTok star with 10 million followers. But, as true crime author Michelle Dean warns, we are celebrating a victim who became a killer. What does that say about us? So, what flips the switch? Let's break it down with cold, hard evidence. Childhood abuse doesn't just hurt, it rewires the brain. A 2018 Yale study found that kids who endured chronic trauma have 24% less gray matter in the prefrontal cortex, the area governing empathy and impulse control. Translation: their brain literally can't process consequences. Dr. Patrick Carnes, a leading trauma expert, explains that victims often bond with abusers to survive. This creates a warped blueprint. If love equals pain, then pain becomes their language. Homolka bonded with Bernardo. Wuornos bonded with John, who paid her $20. For them, violence wasn't a choice, it was a dialect. A 2020 DOJ report found that 68% of women who kill abusers had sought help at least once and been ignored. A 2020 DOJ report found that 68% of women who kill abusers had sought help at least once and been ignored. Gypsy Rose tried to run at 19. Dee Dee chained her to a bed. Wuornos begged cops to arrest her rapists. They laughed. When the system fails, desperation becomes a weapon. Trauma isn't a life sentence, but without intervention, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. These killers aren't born evil. They are created by a world that refused to see their pain until it was too late. But wait, not all victims become killers. Meet Mary Vincent. In 1978, 15-year-old Mary hitchhiked near Berkeley. Lawrence Singleton, a 51-year-old merchant marine, picked her up, raped her, chopped off her forearms with an axe, and left her in a ditch. Mary crawled to the road, her stumps wrapped in a sweater. Singleton served just 8 years. And when released, crowds protested outside his home. But Mary, she became a sculptor, using prosthetic arms to mold clay. At Singleton's 1997 trial for another murder, she testified, "I won't let him take my soul." Mary's story is the counterpoint. Same trauma, same rage, but a different choice. Why? Studies suggest one factor above all: connection. Mary had a family who fought for her. Gypsy, Aileen, Karla, they were alone. As author John and Harry writes, the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety, it's human connection.